welcome to another episode of Talking Small Press Comics. This is Talking Small Press Comics Update with Steve Keeter, and me, Larned Justin. So we haven't been on for a little while, and we thought, boy, they're going to forget who we are. We better come on and show our faces again.
It hasn't been that long. It hasn't been that long. It's only been like a couple of weeks. But what we would like to do is one show every week, perhaps on Saturday, Saturday or Sunday, but one show a week.
That's what we'd like to do. It's all based on the comics we receive. So we wanted to kind of go over that whole procedure and everything, you know. The best thing to do would be to subscribe to us and then hit the bell notification so that it notifies you when we're on. That was one of the things we wanted to emphasize. Be sure and do that. The other thing is we need comics to take a look at. We don't critique comics, we promote comics. And the only snag there is that you have to send me a copy and Steve a copy. We don't know any way around that. He's in Florida, I'm in Missouri.
Yeah, we're that far apart. So
so,
you send a copy to me and send a copy to Larned. I mean, really, if it bothers you to send 2 copies, we're doing this to promote you and to promote small press. The technical version, we'll send you one of the copies back, but we want we just want to promote small press.
Right. I was going to say our views for this kind of a niche have been over 130 per episode. Now that doesn't sound like a whole lot, but for what we do for small press comics, and there's different kinds of small press comics, we kind of we kind of stick to the same type of small press comic. There's art comics, there's all those, zines and all those kinds of things. Generally, we do just comic books. That's what we review and promote.
And so, we do shows where we will review your comics. We also do interview shows. We've interviewed a whole lot of people. I have a list somewhere over here, but the Steve Willis interview, that was a banger, man. We got a lot of views on that one.
Yeah, well over 300.
I might have a list over here. Just thinking about it, I have a list somewhere of all the people we have reviewed, but I can't find it right now. But
we've done quite a few, because I think of somebody to review and I mention it to Steve and he said, "We already did that." Oh, yeah, that's right. We did do that.
Jason DeGood. Steve Shipley.
We've done a ton of them.
A lot of people.
And they're all down here on our channel, so you can find them. Just go through the videos and you'll find them. But we've done a bunch, and we enjoy doing the interviews. They're a lot of fun. So we're just encouraging you to stick with us. We're still here. We're still going. And we would love to have you send us your comics. Or the other thing we like is when we do a show and we post it on YouTube, write a comment. We answer all the comments, and we love that too. That's fun too. So be sure and write a comment. After you see a video, you didn't like it, you liked it, or you got some other kind of comment, do it. We will answer it.
It helps them.
Yeah, and it tells us if we're doing something right or doing something wrong. We had just a comment the other day that a fellow said he didn't understand where the contact information was for the people we talked about.
Yeah, so that's because below the video there's a little description, but YouTube, in their infinite wisdom, have decided to abbreviate that description, so that it says like a few words and then it says more. You have to click on more, and that's where all that contact information is, unfortunately.
That's where it is. And we didn't quite realize that. That's another reason for doing this, so we can let you know that. We didn't quite realize that for a while. So he said, I can't find your any of the contact information. And we're going, well, it's right there, you know.
It
But
is right there.
it
You got to
is if
click
you
that
hit that little more button.
Yeah.
So, and, you know, we're not the only people doing this. We've got some friends that have YouTube channels that do comic books. Tom Fellrath has just started a new channel called Fanzine Live.
Yeah, he has a new video too. He talks about his stuff. He talks about other people's comics.
He
And,
may only he'll concentrate on one issue. I think that's what he's doing. At least the first episode, he just did one issue, one comic. It happened to be his this time, but I don't know that he'll always do his stuff. But
I think the second episode, he uploaded a second episode, and I watched the first few seconds, but then the phone rang or whatever. But I'll get back to it. I'm definitely gonna keep track of it. And
he
keep
is,
watching
if I understood him right, he's going to try to do 3 episodes a week. That's very ambitious. I hope he can do it. I hope he can maintain it. You know,
that's Tom Fellrath. He has tons of energy,
yeah.
tons of talent. He's got so many ideas. He's always coming up with stuff, and he's
so
well worth checking out.
A ton of his own stuff to promote, and I think he's going to do some things with other people. He's got a number of artists he works with who are excellent, excellent artists, and you know, go over to YouTube, type in Fanzine Live, and take a look at it. Our other friends from Comics in the Making, Ryan Holgerson and Levi Erickson, have a show.
Those guys.
Huh?
Those guys. They have a show that's very informative. They get into the making of alternative press comics. They get in depth into it, show how they do it and how other people do it. It's very informative. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, their show is good. And then Ryan himself promotes. He does videos on his own stories that he posts on Facebook. And he tells you how he came up with the idea and gives you a little example of what he has to do to get them up. And that's interesting too. So those guys are, you know, a lot of fun, and
they're among the best.
That's called Comics in the Making.
Comics in the Making. Check that channel out. I'm looking. I think they need more views, and you guys should check it out because first of all, you'll really enjoy the shows. And these guys are true comic book fanatics. They love what they do, and they love talking about it.
Excellent cartoonists, both of them. Yeah. Very good.
So check them out.
Cartoonists. So that's that. We were going to maybe talk a little bit, speaking of Comics in the Making, we're going to kind of show you a little bit how we do our comics. Maybe it's different than you've seen before. Maybe it's the same thing, but we just thought we'd get into that a little bit. Did you have
But you have to understand, we've been around for a long time. I know we both look like 24 years old, but we've been around for quite a long time. And so maybe, I know in my case, I haven't kept up with a lot of technology. I send stuff to my daughter to help me out because she's 33 and she knows, you know, she's a super genius when it comes to, well, putting together pages and online. But I want to hear first what Larned has to say. And I know you do too. How do you make your comics?
Okay, well, first of all, I think the most difficult thing about making a comic is coming up with a story. To me, that is the hardest part. If somebody asks me to do a cartoon for them and they have the story all laid out, I can do that in about a day, you know, no problem. But if I had to come up with the idea, that's a little trickier, and I'm famous for starting out with a half an idea and worrying about the rest of it as I go along, which is probably not the best idea. But
you make notes all the time.
After you come up with the idea, you need the tools, and here's what I use. As far as paper, I like to use Bristol board, the smooth surface. There's also a plate finish that I've used, but mostly I use the Bristol board smooth finish. So that's what I draw on. And this particular size is 9 by 12. Do you use that also, Steve?
I do, but see, you're smart.
I know I'm smart.
You get a larger size. This is only 8.5 by 11 of Bristol here.
I do the
now I know better. I know better because I know it's not going to reduce proportionately down to digest size.
Yeah.
In the drawing of the comics, I try to change the page margin. I try to because this is what I can afford. So I try to draw it and outline it in a way where it will reduce and be proportionate and look good on a digest size comic. But you're using the larger size paper.
Yeah.
I used to do that. I used to buy the larger Bristol board and I would cut it down. And
I don't cut it down, but I do draw a border around where and it's smaller.
Right.
You know, I don't go all the way to the edge of the paper or anything, and I draw within that border. You know.
Yeah, the art itself has to be proportionate to digest size, not the paper. It's the art itself.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
So.
And matter of fact, what I'm working on now is going to be standard comic book size. I am working on one. I've got 18 pages done, full color. I want it to be 32 pages.
Wow.
But it's slow going. It's probably be quite a while before I get it done. But
but you're so prolific. I mean, you put out a comic or two just last year. I mean, not that long ago.
Yeah.
And you keep coming up with all these ideas, and you know, I'm jealous of your energy. You have so much energy, so much creativity.
Now
I'm just saying this. When I say this kind of stuff, Larned sends me money, so that's why I do it.
Yeah.
But it's
Well,
also true.
He's not going to say that stuff, you know, without being paid. So, but getting back to tools, I just came up with a new set of pens. My pens ran out of ink. These are from Walmart, believe it or not. King Art Fine Line pen set, and you can kind of see everything that's in there if I can get it. But so far, they're excellent. I have no complaints about these at all. Let me just show you one. I'll show you something.
I want to write that down. You said King Art?
King Art, yeah.
King Art. I'm going to write that down.
I don't know if you'll be able to see this or not, but I've tried. You see the cap has a window in it which shows the point.
See it.
You see it? Yeah.
I see it.
You don't even have to look at the number. You can look at the pen and see what the nib is that you're using. This one's a pretty thick one, but the real fine ones, you know, they have. But I thought that was pretty neat. I never saw that before. A window in the pen, and then there's that nib. But
that's cool.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty neat.
I noticed before when I came to visit you, you had all these markers, all these different markers.
Right.
You know, I don't do as much artwork, not even close to what you do. I went a long time without drawing anything. I was just writing comics or publishing comics, but I wasn't drawing.
Yeah.
Slowly, I'm kind of getting back into that, and I could use some tips too. That's why I'm writing down your information because you know what you're talking about.
Well, here it is. It's King Art pens, and they're at Walmart.
King Art.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like them so far. If I have trouble with them, I will let you know. And Steve has disappeared, which is magic. We like to do a little magic on the show, and I think I've made him disappear.
I don't know what's going on. I'm just kind of hanging out.
Okay, he's mumbling in the background, but
Yep.
I hope he's still awake. That's the main thing. Oh, there he is.
Well, I was looking for markers, and essentially, I'm old-fashioned, man. I use like flare pens. And
yeah, I've used a flare pen. You know what I found, Steve, with a flare pen? If you draw with it and you go to erase your pencil lines too soon, it smears. And I've had trouble with that. These don't. These do not These do not smear. You can erase the pencil line as soon as you draw on with the ink, and it will not
That's
smear.
nice. That's
So
definitely a nice feature.
that flare pen does. I like it because I like the size of it,
Yeah.
but you got to be very careful. I've smeared stuff, and I'm.
Interestingly, I heard from recently. I've been hearing from an old friend, Chuck Bunker, who was around in small press comics back in the 1980s, and he disappeared for like several decades. And like some of us, he has come back, like Tom Felrath, for instance. You can't stay away forever. You got to come back. The lure of small press is too awesome. You cannot resist it. So
Yeah.
Chuck is back, and and he was looking for a good gum eraser. He was doing his pencils doing it on Bristol, and he said, I just don't have a good gum eraser, good eraser. So I sent him a couple just for a surprise. Surprise!
Mm-hmm.
And now he's happy, and you've got new comics coming out. He's going to have work in my newest. Where we got it?
Okay.
We're digressing all over the place. This folder, and these are old-fashioned. Everybody saves stuff to their computer. Not me. I got everything in folders. Mantra number 13. This will be out within a couple of months. Chuck Bunker's going to have work in there. He's going to have a new comic strip.
And did you say he already sent it to you? Or not?
He's erasing the pencil line, so it's on the way. He does Pie Man, Pie Man, but he does a lot of other stuff. And I have this one's going to be interesting. You gotta be ready to do some serious reading for this particular issue, because I think Chuck's comic strip, which I think is going to be like between 13 and 16 pages long. That's going to be the main feature of the issue, but I've got a couple of other text fiction stories.
Oh, who's that by?
This from Roland Tim Timmel. That is this is just the original text
you're
that he's
holding it in front of
but
the
he's, he's Roland Tim Timmel. He did, what was it, Troubleshooter in the last issue of and but he's sending me a version with a lot of really cool artwork. Alan Freeman, more text. Get ready, folks. There's going to be a lot of text in this issue. This is called Robert's Treasure by Alan Freeman. You see, we're in the very beginning here. We have the text, but we haven't added the illos.
Yeah.
There's going to be artwork. Since I'm self-promoting all over the place here, folks. There's going to be artwork by the great Chuck Haspel.
Ooh, look at
another
that.
Guy. That's Betty Page. Another guy who did work back in the 80s, and he's back in the small press. He's a friend of Alan Freeman. So look at this one.
Oh, boy. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So he's a really great artist. Really excellent artist. I got other stuff that's going to be in there. This is going to be an interesting issue. The thing about, if I have two main publications, and Mantra, both based on when I was a young hippie in the early 70s, and everybody thought it was really cool to have Hindu stuff in your title. Hindu mysticism. Om Mantra. Om is a mantra that you say to relax. And but has always been about, it's just comic strips. Lots of comic strips. Some of my main characters, Nightman, the Raven, Sunwing, they all first appeared in and but Mantra has been different over the years. The first couple of issues of Mantra had in the early 70s, the mid 70s, had artwork by Brent Anderson, Frank Sirocco, and it had comics mixed with text fiction, occasionally mixed with articles. So it's whatever I want it to be. If I want to put poetry in there, I can. If I want to do an all comics issue, I can, and I have. But that one gives me a chance to experiment. If you don't mind, can you indulge me a moment further, sir?
Sure.
Okay. Let's go back. And I could go back to the very beginnings. Where did I put it?
I don't know.
Oh, it's right here. Yeah, so Mantra's going to be out pretty soon, and I hope you guys you'll keep up with.
You're talking away from the mic.
Well, I'm over here, and
Yeah.
the mic is there.
Right.
So
And the mic does not follow you.
now, first of all, you got to check out our show, Talking Small Press Comics.
There you go. That's our car.
Check it out.
Yeah.
This is like the most exciting show on the internet. There's really nothing else quite like it. This is the one you guys need to be checking into. So if you're not, you're missing out big time. I'm glad you're here today. And once you've seen the first episode, of course, you're going to be addicted. So you're never going to stop coming back. You're going to stay right here, which is right where we want you to be. And okay, I published. I'll show you very quickly. I'm trying to be as quick as possible, Larna, but I'm off on a spiel. Okay.
Okay, that's all right. We don't care.
Here we go.
Do what you got to do.
Very quickly. I hope you guys are entertained by this, but this is small press history, so it's not just entertainment, even though what we publish is essentially entertainment. But in the old days, I used to draw all my comics on pencil, just on regular typing paper. Here's a copy of Fantasy Illustrated, an issue that I published. I didn't publish. It was never published. But I had all these ideas for superheroes. Even Frankenstein and the Wolfman were in this, and King Kong. And I had characters. I had the Solar League, Solar Man. I had a character called Starman. Starman is right there where my finger is at. But these characters will probably never be. Where's my finger? Where's Starman? Right there. These characters were published when I was like 15. Weren't published. Were created when I was 15 years old or whatever. And I was in class. And instead of paying attention to the teacher, I'm sitting there drawing comics and making them up panel by panel as I go. Now, in 1969, and I know it's 1969. Folks, I'm prepared for this. I was doing a little research before we came on. I used to buy this on the stands. It's Larry Ivy's Monsters and Heroes. Larry Ivy did Ultron Boy, and he published a magazine where he talked about and wrote articles about superheroes and monsters and movies. Now, towards the end of the issue, I was an Edgar Rice Burroughs. I was a Tarzan fan, okay? And he's got a picture. It looks like Lex Barker, probably.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Okay, because the mic's covered up here. Okay, but in this particular issue, which was published like March 1969, I saw my first. This is the first time I heard anything about an alternative comics network, a fandom of people who self-publish comics. And he lists of some Edgar Rice Burroughs fanzines in here that you could order. E.R. Beatum, which is number 27, E.R. Beatum, Edgar Rice Burroughsdom. I ordered that in 1969. The Barsoomian was published by Paul C. Allen, and these were Edgar Rice Burroughs small press fanzines. I mean, and I came into fandom by way of Edgar Rice Burroughs fandom. So the first thing I ever published was this. In 1969, it was published in Ditto, that Purple Method, published on my high school, the Ditto machine, the Spirit Duplicator. They used to print these purple tests, and everybody would smell them because the paper smelled so good. This was my overwhelmingly awesome debut.
Edgar Rice, what?
The Worlds of Edgar Rice Burroughs. The first thing I ever published, it was like 30 issues. And look at this incredible artwork. I mean, wow. Neil Adams got nothing on me, all right? So this was just an Edgar Rice Burroughs fanzine. and it was really terrible. I mean, it was beyond terrible. I got here's a picture. I'll show you a picture. I might have been 14. Here's a picture. Tarzan of the Apes. There you go.
Oh boy. Okay.
There you go.
You were. It just shows to go. Yeah, you were doing it. You've been doing it a long time.
Yeah. So I was doing that, and then I was always reading comics, collecting comics. I had thousands of comics at one time. In 1972, I did a pencil version of something called Galaxy Comics #1, which introduced Nightman and Sunwing, looking sort of like a very early version of Nightman. But then a few months later, I had met this guy, Chuck Robinson II. He published comic back in the late 60s, early 70s. Bill Shelley mentions him in some of his books about comics. Bill Shelley, R.I.P. But before he passed away, he did mention a lot of small press people. People who didn't know anything about small press or alternative comics learned from reading Bill Shelley's book. This was another version that I did, and my artwork that wasn't much better, a little bit better.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
But I had met this guy, Chuck Robinson. He was an English teacher in the town of Edenton, North Carolina at the time. And he heard about me. There was this guy who drew comics in school. Some other classmate told him, they said, he draws them just like the real ones. Well, not really. I had a long ways to go. But Chuck did ink one page here. And you can see how much better his inks look over my pencils.
Can't hear you, Steve.
His inks, he inked this.
Huh? Oh,
you can hear it now?
I thought you said he inked it. Okay.
Yeah, he inked this. And
very good.
Turned out really nice. And he said to me, again, I published like 30, 40 copies. I sent out a few copies to the small press people. I didn't send out a lot. And he was saying, but I wasn't happy with it because I'd seen his comics and they were so good. And he had so many great talents. Like Bill Shelley, for instance, was one of the talents. He had like Rich Buckler.
How did you do it before the internet? Because there was no internet. There's nothing like that. It's all got to be correspondence, in the mail. That's the only way you could do it in those days.
Exactly. We had to communicate by mail.
Right.
So Chuck would say, okay, and for instance, Chuck introduced me to Steve Shipley, called Stephen Mark back in those days, and he says, this guy might do work for you, write him a letter. So I'd write a letter. 2 weeks later, I hear back from Steve Shipley, and he says, sure, I'd like to do something for you. And I'm like, yay. And we would just write letters back and forth. There was no internet.
Yeah.
Occasionally, someone would communicate by telephone, but we just did it, and we waited. We were very patient people. While we were waiting, we're drawing, we're writing, we're working on our comics, and it was brilliant. It was a great network. It was so exciting in those early days because
it was. Yes, it was.
All new. And
I entered a little bit later than you.
Yeah.
But around the time that Tim Corrigan was publishing his, whatever the name of it was, comics.
I think Small Press Comics.
Small Press Comics.
No, that's us. That's us. Small Press Comics Explosion.
Explosion, yeah. That was Tim's thing, and he had a number of different versions of that. But that's how one of the ways I discovered Small Press was through him, and then later met him. And you talked about talking on the phone. I did talk on the phone with Tim. We collaborated on a number of projects, and that's how I got started. I would have to credit Tim Corrigan with getting me started.
He brought so many people into the Small Press network. Before Tim Corrigan came along, there were news and review zines and Small Press going all the way back. But Kevin Collier, this guy Kevin Collier, came along, and what was it? Was the early 80s? I don't know, but it was. He came along and he had published. He published. What was it? Comic Scene or something like that. I can't remember. Sorry, right now. But he published news and review zines that predated Tim Corrigan's stuff, and he talked about small press comics, and he treated them with respect, not like other people. Or somebody published a comic. He treated them with respect. He, you know, I used to jokingly call my publications Happy Face Publications. Instead of saying Steve Keeter just published this, he says, "From Happy Face Publications comes this great new publication." And I'm like, whoa, thank you. He made you feel important. He made you feel important. And then Kevin Collier quit publishing, and Tim Corrigan began publishing, picking up where Collier had left off. He started doing a Small Press Comics Explosion. He did a few issues that were published offset. And then the direct market exploded back in the mid to late 80s, the mid 80s. People were publishing stuff, and it was going out. It was right there on the stands beside Marvel and DC in a lot of places. And Tim took Small Press Comics Explosion out into the mainstream market and published it. I mean, you could find copies. I mean, if you go to a comic shop.
He talked about running 1,000 copies. You know, he said my next issue will be 1,000 copies. You know,
but I think during that particular period, he had a much greater readership because there was SPCE, and then he revived it a little bit later. But in that particular time, when it went out into the direct market, during the direct market boom of the 80s, he got thousands of subscribers. And all these people who have never heard of small press all of a sudden discovered it. They went to stand and they started reading this, and they were astounded, and they wanted to get involved. And so all these people came in, and it really caused a huge boom in the alternative comics network scene.
It just, for some unknown reason, didn't last very long. I don't know why.
Well, the direct market boom didn't last very long. It lasted for a few years.
Yeah.
And,
well, I think television, cable, all those kind of things hurt comic books in general.
Yeah. Things were changing, you know.
Yeah. So, anywho, this has been interesting, I think.
I didn't mean to take over the show. I got excited. You know, when you love comics, you're into comics, you're into the whole community, and you've been doing this for half a century. The excitement never dies.
Right.
You keep doing it, and you getting
fun doing it. And but anyway, we did this because we wanted to show you that we are still around, and we are working toward, as Steve originally said, we're working toward a weekly show.
Weekly shows.
It may only be 1 or 2 comics if we don't get very many. And our shows up to date, we've waited until we had 6 or 7 comic books to do a show. Well, we're not going to wait that long. We get 1 or 2, and we're going to do a show. So
it might not be as long a show, but we'll do a show.
Yeah, it won't be as long, of course, but that's what we're going to do. That's what we're working towards. So if you can help out with that by sending comics, please do.
Okay, I got something else to say, Larn.
Okay.
You're not done with me yet. You're not done. In 2001, I published Sunwing #5, which has a Larry Blake cover here.
Oh, Larry Blake,
yeah, Larry Blake, and the back cover is also by Larry Blake.
Yeah.
I do have to mention, Larry Blake is having very serious health problems right now. Bob Corby has a GoFundMe out there if you want to help support Larry with his hospital bills and everything. But we love the guy, and we wish him all the best. Keep him in your prayers. At the very least, keep him in your prayers. Because we want to see him around for a long time to come. But he's published a lot of great comics.
Oh man, tons.
We love the guy. So,
yeah.
But back to Sunwing #5. Here it is. That great artwork by Scott. Well, I'm talking about my own comics. I don't want to say, well, this is great, this is superb, but Scott McCloud really did a knockout job on the artwork. But we were talking about the way we make comics. Now, how we create our comics, and it's not just about the writing and the artwork and everything. There's production. You got to get into the production. Now, I am a dinosaur. So I've never had Photoshop. I don't know how to put these pages side by side and rearrange them and everything using a computer. I get my daughter to help out a lot. My daughter Judy, she's very helpful. Look, I don't know how to do this. Can you do this for me? And she says, "Okay, Dad." It's great to have daughters, you know. And so Sunwing #5, I started it out just typing up the pages and printing out some of the artwork. People sent me artwork online. Scott McClung's artwork.
Nice. Yeah.
For Sunwing versus the Sorceress. But, you know, I worked in the printing business, in the printing industry for 20 years. In the 80s through the 90s, which is cool because I was running an offset press and I could print my own comics for free. So it was a big boom in my publications at that time because I could print them for free. So it was great. But in those days, we used to make reductions on the page, and then we will paste up the reductions. Like you have 2 pages, like, you know, this page was 1 page. It was reduced to digest size, and then there's this page, and you take you know, glue stick, and you paste them 8.5 by 11, the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
And I still do it that way because I did it for all those years. And you know, I don't know. I don't know the new modern methods.
Yeah. Well, it works fine. No, I've seen your publications. They're fine.
These are the actual paste ups. The actual paste ups for Sunwing, and you know, it turned out like this. It turned out pretty good. So
great. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm old-fashioned. I still do it the old-fashioned way. I will say that if you go back, I was talking about my history in small press. If you go back to 1973, the third small press comics that I ever published was #1. Here is an original copy of that, tattered and torn and yellowed. This #1 with a cover. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
With a cover by Chuck Robinson II.
Oh, yeah.
Inside the pages were all in the purple ditto. That cheap high school method that we used. Woo! This one's not stapled. This one, which is cool. But you can see artwork by Steve Shipley. Artwork by Steve Shipley in 1973. Inked by me. I was the inker. And then a couple of years ago, thanks to Dan Burke, #1 just happened to be the very first comic book, small press comic that he ever ordered in 1973. Also, Matt Fiesel recently revealed that this was the first comic book he ever ordered in 1973. So I feel very honored. These great talents and see how far they've come. And the first thing they learned about small press was me. This is the reprint. We did a direct market reprint. Dan Burke had to help me every step of the way, you know, because, again, I'm just not that technologically advanced. But you can see the difference between my original copy, and the reprint.
Yeah.
That look nice or what?
Yeah, nice. Yep.
Thanks. I got to thank Dan Burke. I'd like to do more stuff with direct market. And there's a company called Kablam here, right here in downtown Orlando, like 5 miles away from here. I've never been to their offices, but they do this print on demand. They do this print on demand stuff. And, you know, I could just go down there and work it out.
Stuff with you and say, here.
Yeah. So, yeah,
that's what I would do.
All right, what else are we going to talk about?
I think we've talked long enough. But
Yeah.
anyway, we're going to be back very soon with a regular show promoting comics. That'll be coming up very shortly. So
if you guys have any ideas for interviews, we're thinking about interviewing
if you'd like to see somebody interviewed other than President Biden.
No, we don't interview that guy.
No.
No.
But
Trump and Biden are not invited to the show. No politicians invited.
No politicians is right. Yeah.
You got to be a comic book geek.
It's got to be somebody in the comic book area. And anyway, we will be looking for people to interview, and we're going to be, like I said, we will have comics to show you. And so I think we're going to end this here, and we will see you very shortly. I'm going to say goodbye.
Bye. Adios.